Hello again, everybody, and welcome to Friday's edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live here on Giants.com, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. And man, oh man, we got a bright football Friday ahead for you today. 1 hour of New York Giants talk as they prep for the Sunday night matchup with the Cincinnati Bengals here at MetLife Stadium. The weather outside, look, I get it, right? I get it. It's football season, but it's like baseball weather out there right now. And speaking of baseball, the Yankees have moved on. They have knocked off the upstart Kansas City Royals. Garrett Cole doing exactly what he's paid to do. Now the Giants are on a one-game roll. The Yankees and the Mets are both on a series roll. And there's a feel-good vibe in New York, right?
Oh, yeah. You know, New York has a very, very big little stretch of sports coming up. Because Sunday night, obviously, Giants take on the Bengals in primetime. Game 1 of the NLCS, Mets versus Dodgers or Padres, whoever wins that series. And then Monday, NLCS Game 2 is 4 o'clock. Yankees ALCS Game 1, Monday night. The Jets are on Monday night. You know, the hockey season
Bills, by the way.
Jets-Bills, yeah, the division game. Hockey season just got started. The Knicks, I believe, I saw play the Timberwolves. I don't know.
The Blockers.
If it's still preseason at that.
It's still preseason right now. It is.
But especially after the big trade that the Knicks just did.
See what Towns did in his first preseason game? 23 points.
Oh, that's
and I think
that's why you make that trade.
Was it 10 or 12 boards in the first preseason game?
Sounds like Towns.
So, folks,
big stretch.
We got a little energy going here in the New York metropolitan area. I don't know if you can feel it through the screen or feel it through the microphone and the speakers, but those of you who aren't here and around the country and around the world, we do get international viewers. Okay, we do, Matt. You could feel it. At least I hope you can. Paul Dottino and Matt Citak, we're going to be here now for the next hour. 201-939-4513 to talk New York Giants football. Quickly, an injury update. Now, the official injury status report will be released later on this afternoon. But very, very quickly, Matt, I'm going to let you go over it. We do know that Malik Neighbors is still in concussion protocol, progressing according to the coach, but he is out for the game. Otherwise, there were no definitive words given out by Coach on the other fellas, but we do have a little bit of an update as to what's going on today.
Yeah, so Malik is out. Nothing else to say about that. Running back Devin Singletary, Coach said will practice in some capacity. He's been limited. He was limited last Friday, was limited Wednesday and Thursday of this week. We'll see where he gets, what he gets listed as today, what his game status is. If I had to guess, I would say probably will be listed as questionable if he can get it, if he's, 3 straight limited practices, but who knows? Coach said earlier in the week he's trending in the right direction, but that one, remains to be seen. Starting left guard John Runyon was back at practice. He missed Wednesday and Thursday due to an illness. He was feeling under the weather, but he's back today, so hopefully that means, good to go for Sunday, but we'll see. Wide receiver Bryce Ford-Whedon also, I believe he returned to practice today. He was in some capacity.
And then they kind of downgraded him a bit because after they got out there, Coach noticed he was going to be on the side with trainers, and he made note to tell the writers that we kind of thought he was going to practice today, but he's kind of limited.
Yeah, he's dealing with a shoulder injury from last week. So, similar to Singletary, we'll see what he gets listed as on the final injury report. I believe that's it. Did Coach have a Kayvon update?
Simply put, Kayvon was out there working some one-on-one drills, helping Azeez Ojulari along, but it did not look like he was going to do anything more than that.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, again, as John and I said on the show yesterday, Kayvon just had surgery Wednesday morning. It would be a pretty miraculous turnaround if he's able to suit up for Sunday. I guess you never know until he gets listed as out. You never know. But I feel like that one probably will be tough for him to make.
I suspect
in a couple of days from
I'm in line with you guys on that one. I will say this though, that I do believe that Azeez Ojulari is a much better position now that he was in the last couple of years to be able to take those snaps. He's only playing a little more than a third of the defensive snaps this year because he's been behind Burns and Thibodeau. Now, we do know that Burns has had a bit of a sore groin, so he's taken some snaps off the last couple of weeks. You know, they've rotated Ojulari in. And I was talking to Azeez about it, and I said, look, you're a veteran now. You know more what to look for. You understand your keys better. You understand the RPOs. You understand the running plays, the blocking assignments. I think that Azeez Ojulari has quietly been more efficient in his snaps this year than he had been in his first couple of years in the league, even though as a rookie he had 8 sacks. I know those are splash plays, but I think this year he's been healthy, he's been on the field, and maybe that's because of the decrease in playing time too, to be honest. Maybe the fact that he's playing less has allowed him to maintain his body more. I don't know the answer to that. Only he can tell you. But he feels more confident in his play on the field, and I think it's shown.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is a guy that has experience with and success in the NFL as a pass rusher. As you mentioned, 8 sacks as a rookie, set the Giants' rookie record. People seem to...
Well, Lawrence Taylor.
The official one.
Thank you.
Unofficial, that's another story.
Asterisk.
The official rookie record with 8 sacks, had 13 quarterback hits. Then the next year, he dealt with injuries throughout the season, only played 7 games, not even a full 7 games.
No.
And he had 5.5 sacks and 3 forced fumbles. Last year, he got hurt again. Didn't get onto the field as much as he would have hoped. 11 games, only 2.5 sacks. But you're right. He's been on the field as I don't want to say a reserve, because he's still on the field a decent amount in pass rushing situations. But he's played in 5 games. He has a sack, 2 quarterback hits. Clearly, he's set up to now have his biggest workload of the season on Sunday, with it looking like Kayvon won't be able to make it. And I'm excited to see what he can do, because he's never, he's obviously played next to Dexter Lawrence before on the opposite end as Kayvon, but he's now on a defensive line with Dexter Lawrence and Brian Burns. And those 2 guys are going to get the most attention from the opposing offensive line. It's just a fact. Those 2 are the biggest pass rushing threats,
no doubt,
on the Giants. We all know it. That's going to leave Azeez Ojulari in some one-on-one situations, which we have seen
a lot of one-on-ones,
which we have seen in the past him take advantage of and be able to beat his matchup and get after the quarterback. It doesn't have to even be sacks. Sacks, as you mentioned, they're the splash plays. Obviously, you'd love to get a sack every time the opponent goes to drop back for a pass. But even just getting in the quarterback's face, making him throw the ball away, making him scramble out of the pocket, there are ways for Azeez to be able to affect this game even without those big splash plays, and he's going to have a great opportunity to do it.
He would be going primarily up against first-round pick Amarius Mims at right tackle, who has been nursing a sore ankle and now a sore calf on top of that for Cincinnati. And that has been an offensive line that has struggled this year, to be quite frank with you. We will see. But I will say this. Shane Bowen has shown us now the ability to tweak and adapt his scheme multiple times in the first 5 weeks of the season. I mean, we all thought that this is a guy who had, spots on him like a leopard, and he was going to do exactly what he did in Tennessee, and we didn't know how he was going to deal with the Giants personnel. We've already seen multiple styles of what he wants to do. Some heavy blitz, some not heavy blitz. A lot of fake blitzes, a lot of mugging and pre-snap stuff. We're seeing some different things that we didn't necessarily expect to see out of Shane Bowen. So I've got a lot of confidence in him to be able to get things done against Joe Burrow and company, because let's not kid ourselves, they are a very prolific passing attack.
Oh, for sure. I mean, outside of the Week 1 game, which, as we've said multiple times since then, we're kind of just going to throw that game out the window.
That seems to be the aberration, doesn't it?
Yes, because since then, the Giants' defense has just been very good. It doesn't matter how you look at it, what stat you look at. The numbers just show that the Giants have been a very good defense from Week 2 on. And that's a 4-game sample size. It's not like we're talking about, 1 or 2 weeks. A 4-game sample size, that is almost a quarter of the season. And they haven't, in those 4 games, they didn't allow an opponent to score more than 21 points. And that was against Jaden Daniels, who is, I know he's a rookie, but is playing like one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL so far. The Cleveland Browns, okay, they don't have the best offense in the league.
Yeah, that's not a good example.
No, but they only allowed 15 points, and 7 of those points came on that first play touchdown where the Giants fumbled the kickoff. The Browns got it first down on the Giants 24, and that first play threw a touchdown pass to Amari Cooper. Now, you can't just throw that play away, but the Browns were set up on the 24-yard line. They were going to get some points out of that given the circumstances.
But you can throw out the points Seattle scored on the fumble return.
Yes,
because that was not against the defense.
That's what I was going to mention. The next week, Dallas, 20 points, and that is a good offense, a good passing offense, at least. And then the Seahawks finished with 20 points. As you mentioned, 7 of those came on a fumble recovery for a touchdown. So 13 points against a pretty good Seattle offense that even last night against the 49ers, while they struggled at times, ended up scoring, 26 points, I believe? Something like that, against a very good 49ers defense.
Okay, now I got to throw a little cold water on you, Matt.
Bring it.
Bengals have scored more than 21 points in 4 straight games, and they're averaging about 29 a game on the season.
Oh, for sure. This will undoubtedly be not only the toughest test to date for the Giants defense, but maybe the toughest test all season. John and I were talking about this yesterday. The only matchup, at least on paper right now, that looks like the opposing offense could be as potent as this Bengals one is the Baltimore Ravens, which we saw those 2 teams battle last week, and Baltimore came out on top 41-38 in overtime. So this Bengals offense is the real deal. Joe Burrow is playing like an MVP quarterback.
Yep.
They have potentially the best wide receiver duo in the NFL, and if not number 1, at least top 3 or 5.
Oh, I think it's the best. Between Higgins and Chase.
I agree with you, but there are some other good duos out there. But right now, at least the last couple of weeks, they're playing like the top duo. They have other like supplementary playmakers on the offense that maybe not pose as big of a threat as Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, but are still very capable players. Mike Gesicki at tight end. They have Andre Osavas, the number 3 wide receiver, who's been playing pretty well.
He's had dropsy issues, though.
Yeah.
Here's what I will say. Gesicki as the tight end, the receiving tight end, so to speak, between the 2 receivers and Gesicki, show me a team that's got a better threesome. I don't think that's for debate, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's very tough to find one better than those 3.
Yeah. That's what would concern me. And what do you do to try to contain those guys? Well, you got to play really well in the secondary, but even better is you got to get to Burrow.
Yes. I mean, getting to Burrow. I mean, John and I did mention this yesterday that Joe Burrow, if you look at his splits, according to Next Gen Stats, even when pressured, his numbers are still pretty impressive.
He's really good.
Yeah.
But you can minimize the damage
for
a little
sure.
bit.
You obviously, it'll help your defense if you get pressure on any quarterback. But even with Joe Burrow, with his good numbers, you obviously want to get as much pressure on him as possible.
With 4, though. Because he eats up the blitz.
Yeah. You want, obviously, as you mentioned with Shane Bowen, you want to switch things up sometimes. So you're going to send some blitzes. But I don't think this is the game where you want to be incredibly blitz heavy.
Definitely not.
Probably.
Definitely
that may not be the best strategy, but yeah, look, this is going to be a tough test for the defense for sure.
All right, guys. 201-939-4513 is our phone number. Quick reminder, Giants Huddle podcast, brand new one just went up today. You got Adoree Jackson on there. You got Brian Dable on there. You got one of the members of the Bengals radio team on there as well to preview this Sunday night matchup. There are still season tickets available for the New York Giants season. Just in case you haven't gotten them yet, you can still go there and find all your information at giants.com/tickets. There is still limited inventory, and you get all kinds of memberships and game day stuff, and it's really cool. And Giants TV is the official connected TV streaming app. It brings original video content and highlights on demand, and you can get it Giants TV free on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and at the Giants mobile app. All right. One other item that unfortunately has been one of the storylines about this game, Matt, and I say unfortunately because it's a negative for the Giants, although, as we know, history does not necessarily indicate what's going to happen in the present. Sunday Night Football, primetime games in particular, but Sunday Night Football has not been kind to this franchise over the years.
Nope.
Giants, in fact, on the history of Sunday Night Football, they're like 10 games under 500, and they are 4-10 over the previous 10 years playing on Sunday Night Football. I get it, okay? I get it, folks. Usually these primetime games cause a lot of consternation and a lot of agita for Giants fans because things just don't seem to work out very well. But the reason that I bring this up now is because this was a topic that a lot of the writers, rightfully so, brought to the attention of the players during the last couple of days in the locker room. And to the Giants players' credit, very few of them even seem to be aware of it. And certainly, there wasn't a single player that I heard talk about it that even paid it any mind. And that's probably a good thing because, again, the primetime whammy has not been kind to this team.
Yeah. No, I mean, I feel like this narrative, it seems like is sort of revolved around Daniel Jones, at least from the outside. People outside of this building seem to center it around him. Obviously, he's the quarterback. That's just the way it's going to be. And he was asked about this in the locker room on Wednesday, and I thought he had a great answer because he basically said, look, like, we haven't been winning enough games, period, over the last few years. It doesn't matter whether it's prime time or not. We have simply not won enough. So I don't care if it's prime time, during the day, in the morning. It doesn't matter. We need to start winning more football games, period. And I thought that was a great answer. Because
he happens to be truthful about that.
Yeah, because what's he supposed to say in that situation? Like, yeah, we haven't played that well in primetime in years past, but we also haven't played well, period. So everything needs to get better. And, I'm feeling good about Daniel Jones going into this game. I think everything lines up for him to have a good game. I mean, he's played well since that week 1 loss. He's played well the last 4 games. Even the last primetime game, the only thing that kept Daniel Jones from having what everyone would have considered a good game against the Cowboys was the fact that they didn't get into the end zone, which obviously that is a big, big factor in determining the success of an offense's performance. You need to score touchdowns. He said that after the game. Brian Daboll said it. Everyone said it. But if you look at his numbers from that game, they actually were pretty good. And some of his better numbers in primetime, and that was against the Cowboys defense prior to them losing 2 of their best players in Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence. So this matchup against the Bengals defense, on paper at least, it lines up very well for Daniel Jones. Now, the one thing I will say that has me just a little bit concerned is that it has been a very big talking point throughout the week in Cincinnati. They held a players-only meeting a couple of days ago, and I will be shocked if that defense doesn't come out fired up, looking to change their narrative around that unit. I don't know if that will actually do any good for them, but I feel like this is certainly going to be the most fired up that defense is going to be all season. There's
been a splintering going on in Cincinnati. There's been a lot of debate out there in the fan base and in the media about offensive play selection. They don't seem to be very happy with the distribution of the football. T. Higgins, in fact, believe it or not, folks, he's only averaging about 10 yards a catch, which for him is a way, way, way below his career low because they're having to get the ball out quickly to him because the protection's not been good enough for Burrow, and he's been hitting Higgins on hot reads and on quick game stuff. That's just the nature of the beast, and that reduces some of Higgins' effectiveness when he can't get downfield. So that's something that's been a big problem amongst the Cincinnati faithful. And then, as you said, there's been a little bit of a splintering going on because the defense is not holding up its end of the bargain. They've had some injuries too. I don't want to say they haven't, and that can be a reason, as we all know. But there's been some chirping going on around Cincinnati. And that's a very, very touchy dynamic if you're the head coach, because you've got to try to keep that locker room together. The best way to do it is to take them on the road in a hostile environment and say, guys, let's bond together, us against the world. We know the crowd's going to be against us, and let's see what we can do to go in there and kind of get ourselves galvanized. So I understand the dynamic that you're talking about. There's no question. I would also flip it on the other side, though, if you're the Giants. Do you want to go into the jungle where the Bengals may be desperate and maybe basically trying to breathe and gasp air for their very lives? That would be a pretty nasty situation too. So maybe the Giants are better off that the game is home, despite the fact that the Bengals can use the road game as a galvanizing item.
Yeah, I mean, definitely prefer this game be at home because, you Giants fans out there are going to have the team's back and get loud on third down. And
I would hope so.
Home field advantage.
I would hope so.
Without a doubt. Yeah.
Now, I will just add one more thing before we get to our callers, and that is I don't want to gloss over what you said about Daniel Jones. He has had 4 really good games in a row, and really what I thought was his best game in Seattle this past Sunday. I'm going to venture as far as to say this might be the best 4-game streak of his career. You with me?
I am, because when he had weeks 2 and 3, that was the first time in his career that he had back-to-back games with multiple touchdown passes, no interceptions. And on top of that, a passer rating over 100. And he's done that 3 out of the last 4 games. So I'm with you 100%.
And even the game he didn't, he played well.
Yeah, that Cowboys game, he still played well. Again, if they'd gotten into the end zone once or twice, the narrative around that game would have been a lot different. And the narrative around Daniel Jones, I feel like, would be a little bit different
Okay.
now.
And by the way, this goes back to the old story. Daniel Jones was backs against the wall in 2022. He came out and got the Giants into the playoffs. Backs against the wall again this offseason. How many people wanted to hang him by his toes, saying, this is it, got to produce. If you don't, you're going to be out of here. That's what the fan and media narrative was. And what's Daniel Jones done? He's answered the bell once again. And I think, and again, you're agreeing with me, the best month, 4-game stretch that I think he's ever had. And that's what you want from your quarterback. All right, let's go to the phones.
Wait, real quick, just we got an update from Cincinnati. Zach Taylor recently spoke to the media a little while ago. Both running backs, Chase Brown and Zach Moss, both expected to play. Mm-hmm. And their defense is going to get a little bit of a boost because defensive tackle Sheldon Rankins, who's been sidelined recently, he is also expected to play.
He's never lived up to his billing, though, coming out of the draft.
No, not quite, but obviously it's a little bit of a boost for
they'd like to have him,
defensive line. And actually, I think that the fact that both running backs are playing, John and I kind of spoke about this the other day, I actually think that's a positive because I wouldn't want Chase Brown having the full workload because he just looks way more explosive than Zach Moss right now.
Well, Brown is 9th in the National Football League, I believe, in average yards per carry.
It's like 5.7 yards per carry.
Yeah.
He's electric when the ball's in his hands.
And what did I jot down on my notes? One thing to mention about him, we got some bumps and bruises. He's fighting a quad.
Yep.
And Zach Moss is fighting a foot injury.
Yep.
So neither guy is at 100%. They both have been limited to practice all week. So who knows what they're going to be able to give the Bengals on Sunday night. What I do know is this. Brian Dable knows all about Zach Moss from the days in Buffalo.
Yes, he does.
So if there are any tendencies about his running capabilities or his style, so to speak, I think the Giants defense is going to know.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, we get to our calls. 201-939-4513. It is time for Big Ed in Maryland. Your first on the program, Big Ed.
What's up, Big Paulie? How you doing,
Oh, good, man. What's going on?
Great. So much, man. So much. First off, man, here's a big thing. If Daniel Jones has been if the team has been practicing all week in the evening instead of the daytime, it gives them a psychological advantage twice, Paulie. And have they been doing that?
No, they have set practice times during the day.
Yeah, I was going to say, where'd you get the idea they might be practicing at night? They don't have lights here at the Giants practice facility.
Yeah, but
I mean, if they wanted to, they'd have to go inside into the field house, and there's not enough light in there either, to be honest with you. So they'd have to go to the stadium if they wanted to do that.
And that's exactly what it should have been.
Yeah, but Big Ed, with the way things happen to this team in prime time, they'd probably get 5 guys hurt in practice. You don't want to do that.
And also, the stadium gets used for other things.
Yes, it does.
It's not just for the Giants football.
Right. It's like, look, Paulie, it's a psychological thing. Daniel Jones must know how to win at night.
Yeah, but Big Ed, we just got done telling you that the writers were throwing that up in the guys' faces this week, and the guys seem oblivious to it. I'd rather them downplay it and not think about it. You want them to address it and try to reverse it. Sometimes that's the worst thing you can do.
No, we don't want to reverse it. We're talking about with the coaches, man. We're talking about within the family. You know, we don't let another family come and tell him how to do this. It all has to work within one. But it's a mental thing. But getting over it will work. But again, let me say the good stuff real quick. Defense been playing lights out, man. From the first game, not just the first four games. No, they've been playing lights out every game.
They weren't bad against Minnesota, to be honest. They were okay. They were okay.
He did the same thing against Dallas. Gave up 2 touchdowns and 2 field goals. Man, when you do that as a defense on a whole
the Vikings moved the ball pretty well in that first game. I don't want to just ignore that. That was a little rough. But again, it was game 1. It was like a preseason game, so I'm not even thinking about that one. But go ahead, Big Ed. What do the Giants need to do to beat the Bengals? And forget about the karma of playing at night, okay? What do they got to do?
Right. What we got to do? Simple. We got to run the ball, and we got to throw the ball. We have to mix it up and keep that defense off balance. That's the simplest key to them. You got to almost do what the Ravens did, but do it differently. You know, we got runners with this running back core, okay? Mm-hmm. So we got to give them the ball. That's key, all right? It's not the catalyst. It's the key. The catalyst is going to be that passing game. Again, attack with the tight ends over the middle. Go old Bavaro style. You got to. You got big tight ends. You need to use them. Green Bay just did. And it worked for them. So why not work that in the offense? You did it. It worked against Seattle for a reason. I said it for a reason. I'm saying it again for a reason. Mm-hmm. Use the tight end over the middle.
Well, Big Ed, you just said 2 things that worked in Seattle. First of all, Theo Johnson caught a handful of passes and was a important part of trying to move the sticks. And the other thing that you just said, a run and pass. Did you know the Giants, I don't know how many people realize this, Jones had 34 passing attempts and the Giants ran the ball 34 times. How's that for balance?
We there. We just got to be mentally there and not mentally lose it. That's the part.
Okay.
It's not the stats. It's the mental. Remember, football is 80% mental and 40% physical. So we got to play it like such. That hasn't changed.
You're killing me today, Big Ed. You're killing me today.
It hasn't changed, man. It's Friday.
I hope your 3rd grade math teacher is okay with that addition that you just put together.
Because look, Paulie, look, real quick, too. Look, we got 3 games after this one that are pretty big.
No, don't talk about the next game, please. One game at a time, Big Ed. One game at a time.
Right, of course. But look, I'm just saying. We are in October. These are pivotal football moments right now. So getting on something good right now and keeping it going is important. We got to stay focused on the object. Coach got him in a good spot right now. Everybody understand it, and we following through, and it's looking great. Mm-hmm. So we got to keep that up. And how do we keep that up? Keep the defense turning the ball over, man. Oh, my gosh. And then definitely on special teams, man. Definitely go keep attacking.
Okay.
Don't sit back and think we ain't. attack.
Big Ed, we got one line right now because Verizon's giving us some issues in terms of our technological situation. So we're going to have to let you go because I want to get other people on the calls, okay? I'm sorry. I don't want to cut you short, but we kind of have to because we don't have our three full complement lines. We want to keep things rolling a little bit better. Up tempo show. We want to get the tempo going. In and out of the huddle. Hike the ball. Listen, Matt, all good points from Big Ed for sure. I mean, I'm joking with him and everything. All good points. The one thing that I think is very important, though, about the Giants right now as they face this desperate Cincinnati team, which we've already addressed, the one thing that the Giants have to avoid doing is shooting themselves in the foot like they almost did in Seattle. They dominated the game and had 4 drop passes, 3 of which were incredibly critical during the course of the game and could have allowed them to lock that thing away without Seattle even coming within a sniff of stealing the game. You can't do that against Joe Burrow because if you fritter opportunities and allow him extra possessions, or for that matter, the opportunity to then score after you have a 0 possession, guess what? He's going to do it because that's what Joe Burrow does.
Yeah, definitely. And, Coach Dable kind of said this when he was speaking to the media, I believe it was on Wednesday. I have the quote here. Talking about the Bengals, he said, they're a very quality, good football team with a lot of good players, and our focus has to be on us and what we need to do. And, I mean, that is, par for the course with Brian Dable. That's what he's been doing since he got here in 2022. Keeps the focus internal, and that's what it needs to be. You mentioned those mistakes. The Giants are aware of that. They know, obviously. Brian Dable knows. All the players know that they can't afford to make, I don't want to call it mental mistakes, because that fumble with Eric Gray last week easily could have been called a touchdown. And then, as you said, game would not have been even nearly as close as the final score said it was.
They still had 4 drops in the game besides the fumble.
They did. The Giants know they need to focus on themselves. They're obviously preparing for the Bengals. They know how tough of a matchup it is. They're focusing on, the individual one-on-one matchups that some of the players are going to have. But they know that if they go out there and play the type of football that they are preparing for throughout the week, that the results will show come Sunday night. Mm-hmm. Brian Dable has done a tremendous job since he got here at keeping the team focused each and every week. And I know Big Ed tried talking about games down the road.
Don't do that.
As you said, the focus is on Sunday night, and that is it. And I can promise you, in the locker room, they are only focused on the Cincinnati Bengals and Sunday Night Football. They are not looking ahead to next week, the showdown with Saquon Barkley and the Eagles. That is the furthest thing from their mind right now. They are focused on Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and this Bengals team. And that is what they need to be focusing on, obviously.
Yeah, Pittsburgh and Philadelphia can wait.
For sure.
And listen, from a mathematical perspective, this game is a huge game for the Giants, and it has nothing to do with those other 2 opponents. It has to do with the fact that if you win Sunday night, you're back to sea level. You're 3-3 again, and now you basically have an 11-game season in front of you. And you can still do everything that you want to do. And you can basically reset yourself and start from the starting line. If you lose this game Sunday, you're back to now being 2 games under 500. And you have to scramble and find a way to win 2 games just to get back to the starting line again. That's why the game is so important Sunday night. Because you want to get back to sea level. I tell people all the time, you can't start moving ahead and thinking about some things that you are in position to do until you get to sea level. Teams who are under 500 are always looking up. They're always sucking water. They're always trying to dig out through the quicksand. But once you get to sea level, now you can take a breath and reset and kind of, get your feet under you. Get your sea legs under you and say, all right, now let's attack from here. That's the whole foundation, the whole springboard to what you might be able to do later on. But until you get to 500, you're kind of floating around in the quicksand.
You're right. And I don't want to get ahead of ourselves here, but if the Giants win on Sunday night, obviously they can't control what anyone else in the division does, but the Washington Commanders are taking on the Baltimore Ravens, where they are I think a full touchdown underdog. If the Commanders lose and the Giants win, again, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves here, but all of a sudden the Giants are one game back for the division lead. This is, I feel like we kind of say this almost every year, but it feels like the NFC East race is just completely wide open this year. There isn't one team that is so much more dominant than everyone else.
Well, make it wide open by keeping pace.
Exactly. If they win, then all of a sudden you're 3-3.
Or gaining pace, for that matter.
Going into a divisional matchup next week with riding a 2-game winning streak and feeling really good about yourselves. I know Brian Daboll kind of said, or always says, each week is different. We're focused on this week, and again, that's what it should be. But you hope that the Giants can carry over some of that momentum that they clearly gained in with a great overall performance in Seattle last week. You want them to carry some of that momentum over to this big matchup against the Bengals on Sunday night.
No question. All right, 201-939-4513. Vinny in Connecticut, you're next on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Hello.
Hey, guys. Hey, thanks for taking the call. Before I get to my Giant point, Matt, I have to say congratulations to us for the Mets moving forward. I'm so excited as you are. And, Paulie, before you say anything about the Yankees, because I know you're going to chime in, John has done this before, okay? I'll ask you two questions. One is, how many games did the Yankees win against the Mets this year? And then two, what is the one team you don't want to face in the World Series?
The Dodgers. Very simply put, the Dodgers are the team I would not want to face if I was the Yankees. And second of all, the Yankees do own this town. Now, is there something about the Giants you'd like to talk about?
Paul's never going to give the Mets. Paul's never going to give the Mets any sort of credit.
Paulie, you didn't answer the question. The Yankees won no games against the Mets this year. Okay, on to my Giants.
Vinny, the Mets could beat the Yankees in the World Series, and Paul will still sit up here saying the Yankees should have won. They're a better team. No credit to the Mets.
Fortunately, I will never have to deal with that. But anyway, go ahead.
All right, we're going to clip this and maybe replay it in a couple weeks.
All right. So anyway, I've called in the past for the last several years, occasionally calling in, and my biggest gripe has always been about the offensive line. And, man, I am so happy to see that this offensive line has really glued together. Everybody had his head a couple of weeks ago. Daboll's head a couple of weeks ago. You got to give this some time. I don't care who the quarterback would have been over the past 2 years. It didn't matter. You could have put Peyton Manning back there, Eli Manning back there. You pick what quarterback you want back there. It would not have made a darn bit of difference. The line was terrible. You can't complete passes when you're on your back and you're running for your life. It doesn't matter who the quarterback is. It makes a difference when you got time to throw. I will say I was nervous at the start of the season. I thought Danny, I thought he might have been a little mentally unsure of himself. I did say that early on, but you know what? He just needed a little bit of time, and he is back to Danny Dimes, the nickname he earned his rookie year. He made great throws. I know it's one game. I don't know, Paul. I don't agree with you. I don't think he's had 4 great games.
I didn't say great. I didn't say great. I said 4 very good games, and I think it's the 4-game stretch is the best stretch of his career. I really believe that. Now, you're right. They were not 4 great games. I would not dispute you on that at all. But here's what I will say. The Minnesota game, which was a washout for everybody in this locker room, I will say, not only do I think that was a mental hurdle because he was now getting back after the torn ACL and missing so much time and trying to rehab and stuff, but I also think it was a physical thing. I mean, to be frank with you, it was no guarantee when he had his off-season rehab that he was going to be ready for week 1 of the regular season. Heck, Brian Daboll and Joe Shane said throughout the spring, we hope, we think, but there was no guarantee he was going to be able to make it. And he did. So I think also there was a little bit of a physical thing there that he had to get through, getting hit again and getting used to the movements of playing in a real game. So I have a lot of reasons why I can discard that Minnesota game.
Yeah.
I just want to add one other thing that to support what you were just saying about Daniel Jones getting healthier. That week 1 game, I fully agree with you, and I said it on the air the week after that I feel like he was shaking off a lot of the rust, and not to use that as an excuse, but the guy was coming off a very serious knee injury that basically any other quarterback in the NFL, if he had a game like that after his first game back, would be given the benefit of the doubt. But because it's Daniel Jones, everyone was ready to throw him to the Wolves already. But regardless of that, this past Sunday against the Seahawks, Daniel Jones ran the ball a season-high 11 times. He hadn't run the ball more than 8 times in any game prior. 11 rushes, and he not only ran the ball, he ran the ball well and was making defenders miss. He forced 6 missed tackles on those runs, which included at least, 1 or 2 kneel downs? So if you think about it, 6 forced missed tackles on maybe 8 or 9 actual rush attempts. Those are like running back numbers. He was making defenders miss, which just goes to show as he gets further and further removed from that torn ACL, he is getting healthier. And we're going to see the athletic Daniel Jones that we saw in 2022. That's going to start to come out even more than it already has.
Matt and Vinny.
Can I make another point?
Yeah, go ahead, Vinny, and then we're going to let you go. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the only other point I want to make is I know there was all this hype about how he's not being able to make the deep pass those last 2, not the last game, but the games prior. And a lot of callers calling in, going crazy with that. But the bottom line was he was moving the team down the field into the red zone with the short passes. My feeling has always been, deep passes are nice. They're nice to have. I'll take it if I can get it. It's not necessary. What's necessary is you got to score if you get in the red zone. He got the team into the red zone pretty consistently with the short passes, the screens, yada, yada, yada. He got down there, but they got to finish. And I feel like this last game, they finished. That throw to Robinson, we threw across the field. That was an incredible throw. Okay, and he just they have to score in the red zone, and I feel like they're I don't want to say they're there completely, but they look so much better right now. That offensive line is giving them all day to score, and they just have to do it. Score in the red zone.
Well, it certainly helps because the better efficiency you have in the red zone, maybe the less you can lean on explosive plays. John loves to talk about how you got to have explosive plays to score points, and there's a lot of truth to that. But if you can be kick butt in the red zone, that can somewhat buoy that situation.
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
we're going to let you go, Vinny. Go ahead.
Thank you, Vinny. Explosive plays, they obviously help, and they help you get down the field. They also help just kind of keep the defense honest.
Sure.
They can't sell out, stack the box if they're worried about you throwing a 30-yard pass down the field and then gaining another 30 yards after. But I will say, the red zone offense, it has shown signs of improvement, but that is the one area, I think, of the Giants offense that is not where it needs to be yet and still needs more improvement. If you look at the numbers, they are 7 of 16 in trips inside the red zone. Now,
44%.
A lot of that is from the Dallas Cowboy game alone. But nonetheless, they need to capitalize when they get in close. And Brian Dable, Daniel Jones, they'll be the first guys to tell you that. Again, as I said earlier, I think this is a good opportunity for them to do that this week and sort of get back on track with scoring inside the red zone, because while the Giants might have what comes in as the 27th ranked red zone offense, the Bengals currently have the 25th ranked red zone defense. And the Bengals
67%.
Yeah. And the Bengals in key situations have just struggled mightily to get their opponent off the field. They have the 31st ranked third down defense, the 30th ranked fourth down defense, and 25th red zone defense. So I completely agree that I think the biggest factor in the Giants potentially winning this game Sunday night is capitalizing and converting in these key situations. Third down, if they have a fourth down attempt, getting the first down on those and then punching it in when you get inside the red zone.
Further to your point, you cannot leave 4 points on the field by kicking a field goal. Not against Joe Burrow.
No. Not every, especially not at like every trip down.
Can't do it. Can't do it.
You're not going to win the game that way.
Now, there is one item about Daniel Jones that I do want to bring up here because it makes me wince a little bit. Yeah, he carried the ball 11 times in Seattle, and he looked really good, and it was a terrific game by him. But then in the locker room this week, he said, when I start running the ball like that, the more I get into the flow of the game. And I'm like, Daniel, you guys know how I feel about a quarterback running the ball. I like to try to keep those quarterback runs to a minimum. But, hey, God bless him.
Well, I think Daniel Jones running the football is just a part of this offense. You know, it may not be as big a part of the offense as it was 2 years ago.
I'd like to keep it down.
But, you know, the threat of him running the ball is, I think, what helps kind of keep defenses honest a little bit because they know that is part of his skill set that he could do and bust out a run for 30 yards if they leave him wide open. Now, the thing I would like to see is if he sees a defender running at him, Daniel, please just get down. Instead of fighting for that extra yard or two,
and he did
we would rather you get down and not take a big hit. He did, but he also
he fought for extra yards.
Yeah, he took some big hits against the Seahawks, and while he got up and brushed him off, I don't want to see him doing that every single game, taking that many big hits.
No.
He's our quarterback. He's playing really well. I want him to continue to do it and continue to stay healthy. So just try to minimize those big hits and take Daniel, please.
201-939-4513. Our one phone line is open right now if you'd like to get in and talk Giants football against the Bengals. Hey, one thing for sure, weather forecast is incredible. Dry, clear skies. Even though, folks, if you're in the New York area, you know we've been in like the high 40s overnight. Recently. It's gotten a little chillier in the evening, but supposed to be outstanding. And, you know, again, I know Joe Burrow loves to throw the football, but it should be a great night if you want to throw it and if you want to pass the ball because there's not going to be anything to impede you from doing that.
Well, I'm checking weatherchannel.com.
What do they say?
It does say Sunday night. I don't know what time, but it says Sunday night, chance of rain 50%.
Oh, that's going up.
It's going to be beautiful all day, and then at some point Sunday night it might start raining.
I had not seen that on my last
into Monday
check.
morning. Hopefully it's super late and after the game is over, just when we're trying to get our way back home after the game.
On the other hand, if it rains in the fourth quarter of the second half, that's probably likely to bother Burrow more than it will Jones.
That is true.
So maybe it wouldn't be so bad.
We're still 2 days out. As we know, the weather forecast changes every 5 minutes, so we'll have to wait and see how that turns out.
All right, 201-939-4513 is our phone number. I would suspect, now we were talking about Azeez Ojulari before, having to increase his role if Thibodeau should not be available, and again, we don't expect him to be. But when the official injury report comes out, if he is listed as out, I think if I'm the Giants, I'm going to activate Tamon Fox. I'm going to bring him up off the practice squad again for the second time. And I'm going to have him as the next man up behind Ojulari in that outside linebacker, edge rusher rotation. Thoughts about Fox?
I like Fox. I mean, he's obviously not gotten too many opportunities going back to last season. He got a little bit of a run last year. And he produced when he was given an opportunity. You know, obviously he didn't blow up any box scores, but playing as like a reserve pass rusher, he at least one sack last year. You know, got into the quarterback's faces sometimes. Yeah, I could see that. It's either going to be him or Benton Whitley, who was re-signed to the practice squad. Benton Whitley, obviously, at least during the preseason, had a lot of success as a pass rusher.
Oh, he had a good camp.
He had a great camp. That's why he ended up on the team, now on practice squad. But I would suspect one of those two to get called up, or, you know, Brian Daboll said they are still at least discussing the possibility of Kayvon being put on IR. Obviously, we hope that does not happen. Mm-hmm. If it does, one of these guys could just get signed outright to the active roster. And then, who knows, maybe even they call up the other one as well to just have an extra body in that room. But yeah, these guys out behind Brian Burns and Azeez Ojulari, assuming Kayvon's out, they're going to get an opportunity. And as we've seen in every season, guys come out of nowhere and contribute, and can contribute in a big way. And these guys are going to get an opportunity to do it, and we'll see if any of them can take advantage of it.
Both guys, Whitley and Fox, also can play a role on specials.
Yeah.
We've seen that from both players before.
Yep.
So that's also a kind of an added benefit, is that they can give you something there if you need it. And again, we don't know exactly where Bryce Ford-Wheaton's status is, but he is one of the coverage guys. Even though the linebackers aren't going to be gunners, it's still a supplemental coverage guy that can help in your coverage unit.
Yeah, I'm interested to see if Patrick Johnson gets any reps, as an edge rusher. I don't know if he will. I'm curious, because he obviously, the Giants added him. I don't even remember when exactly they added him. At some point, a couple of weeks ago. He's been around the league for a few years.
He has.
Hasn't had a ton of production, but he also hasn't gotten a ton of playing time. But he's with the Eagles, stuck around Philadelphia for 3.5 seasons.
Yeah.
I'm just interested to see if he's given an opportunity, what he might do. I think he's going to be more limited to special teams.
I think so too,
because that's what he's primarily done.
The other guy they have is Boogie Basham, but again, he's more of a run stopper, edge setter than he is a pass rusher or an athletic cover guy. I don't think his skill set helps you as much against the Bengals as the other guys does.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, Boogie Basham hasn't. I think he's only been active. I don't even think he's been active for a game yet. I think he's been a game day inactive each week, the first 5 weeks of the season. Maybe that changes if Kayvon is sidelined. We'll find out on Sunday.
All right, we go back to the lines. Bruce in Virginia. You're next on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Hello.
Hello. Appreciate you taking my call.
Sure.
Just a quick question on coaching. My view is that Neighbors is the first true number one wide receiver that Daniel Jones has had. But I think it's a huge mistake to throw the ball to him 13 times. I don't know how many concussions a player can take before their career is ended, and I hope they guard his number of football.
Well, that's why they're being very, very careful. Actually, it's not even a reason. It happens to be the NFL mandate. You've got to pass your independent concussion protocols before you can get back on the field, because nobody is taking that lightly. Nobody.
No. Yeah. And I agree with you that, the 16-plus targets a game, that might not be the most sustainable thing for anyone in the NFL.
No. Other wide receivers are getting paid, too.
Yeah, no, that is true. But I think this past week showed, the fact that the offense had so much success without Malik Neighbors out there, without Devin Singletary out there, with other guys stepping up. I think that my guess would be gave the whole offense a little bit of a confidence boost. Like, we have other guys that can contribute. We knew, Wan'Dale Robinson's been doing it all season. That was the first game Darius Slayton really stepped up. Theo Johnson had his best game of his young NFL career. I wouldn't be surprised even when Malik Neighbors returns. Hopefully that will be next week. I would think that the offense might be a little bit more balanced. Now, Malik Neighbors is still going to lead the team in targets when he's healthy. He's the best player on the offense. There's no doubt about it. But I do expect at least a slightly more balanced attack once Malik Neighbors is back.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks so much for the call.
Thanks, Bruce.
201-939-4513. If somebody wants to get in one more quick one, we will do so before we sign out of here today. Again, we're expecting the injury report to come out momentarily, and we'll find out exactly what the status is of these guys. Also find out what Cincinnati's doing with some of their folks. You did mention that Zach Taylor did have some positive news about 3 of their players earlier during the program, but we don't know exactly what their status is either. Don't forget, by the way, it is a primetime Sunday night game. I know you guys already kind of know that, but I'm just reminding you, don't show up for a 1 o'clock kickoff on Sunday. You're going to be in the parking lot all by yourself, and that's not going to go very well. But 2 hours before the kickoff, which is, of course, at 8:20, 2 hours before the kickoff, we'll have the radio pregame on WFAN. Then you get the game, of course, on national television, and then you will also have the 2-hour postgame show on WFAN, as well as the 1-hour postgame show live on MSG. So we invite you to, partake in all of the Giants coverage Sunday night as they try to even their record at 3-3. One other item, B.J. Hill is apparently also on the mend from some early nicks and bumps and bruises he had with the Cincinnati Bengals. And I just want to kind of throw out a word about him, because when the Giants had him and he had 5.5 sacks as a rookie and he had played really well, and it turned out, they were desperate for a center. They needed a center. They were having so many difficulties with the offensive line, but they needed a center, and they made a trade with the Bengals. And they sent B.J. Hill over there because they thought that they had a surplus of defensive tackles and defensive linemen. So they went and they made a deal. Well, B.J. Hill has actually carved himself a nice career with Cincinnati. He's done a good job for them.
He really has. Yeah, he's been very solid. I mean, that first season in Cincinnati, he matched his rookie total with 5.5 sacks, and they rewarded him with I believe it was after that offseason that he got a pretty big contract extension with Cincinnati. And, the 2 years after, 3 sacks, 4.5 sacks, played in almost every game. He missed one game in 2022, played in every game last year, has played in 3 games this season. He's been very solid. As you said, at that time, the Giants did feel like they had a surplus of defensive tackles, and they did, honestly. I mean, they traded him in the training camp, I believe, right before the 2021 season, where they had Dexter Lawrence. They had just traded and re-signed Leonard Williams, and B.J. Hill was entering a contract year, and I guess they kind of assumed, we gave Leo this big deal. We're gonna eventually give Dexter a deal. We're not going to be able to pay this guy once the season is over. We need a center. Let's do this flip.
And they wound up acquiring Billy Price, who played for the Giants for a year, and it didn't work out so well. And then he bounced around as a journeyman with a couple other teams, I think.
Yeah, I don't know if he's still in the league.
I don't know if he is now either. But in any event, just throwing out a little bit of a couple of plaudits, though, for B.J. Hill, who was always a good guy when he was here. Really enjoyed him when he was here. Really good locker room guy, good teammate, productive. Knew he was going to have a good NFL career. It was just the circumstances that the Giants were in. They felt you have to give something to get something, and they were desperate for a center.
Yeah, and just a fun little tidbit that this is, of the last 4 games, this is now the 3rd game the Giants will face one of their former defensive tackles.
Oh, I had not thought about that.
Dalvin Tomlinson.
How about that?
In Week 3 against the Browns. Well, actually 4 if you want to count Jonathan Hankins with the Cowboys.
I will count Jonathan Hankins. Absolutely, I will.
Then Leonard Williams last week with the Seahawks. B.J. Hill with the Bengals this week. 4 straight games against former defensive tackles of the New York Giants.
That's a good observation by you.
Tidbit.
Very impressed. I like that one.
I will say, and I'm pretty confident in saying this, of those 4, I'm happy that Dexter Lawrence is the Giants' starting defensive tackle, because I feel like he might be the best of that group, and I feel like that's kind of safe to say.
You're not sure?
Considering at least through 5 games, he's probably in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year, considering he's a half sack shy of the NFL lead in sacks, and that's with him primarily lining up as a nose tackle. It's incredible what he's been doing through 5 weeks.
Yeah, Dexter Lawrence is on track to just have a phenomenal season. By the way, that's Ted Karras, the former Patriot, who is the starting center for Cincinnati.
Good center. Solid player.
Solid player. He will have his hands full, however.
Any center in the NFL is going to have their hands full with Dexter Lawrence. That's just the way it is.
All right, folks, that'll do it for this edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live.
Final takeaways.
Yeah.
Final thoughts before the game.
Final thoughts. The Giants did such a great job of balancing their offense against Seattle last week. I certainly hope that they don't fall into a trap and go one-dimensional against a wounded Bengals defense that has had trouble stopping people this year. Don't get too greedy. Don't get too flashy. Don't try to throw the ball down the field too many times. Just play your game.
Yeah, for me, again, we know how tough this matchup against the Bengals offense is going to be. I think if the Giants can do a good job of getting off the field on 3rd down and at least limiting some of the Bengals' red zone trips to field goals instead of touchdowns, On the defensive side of the ball, I think that's what they need to do in order to give themselves a chance to win. And in terms of the offense, we already know Malik Neighbors is going to be sidelined. We don't know yet the status of Devin Singletary. We could be looking at another game, though, without those two top playmakers for the Giants. And obviously last week, that did not slow down the offense at all. The offense probably had its best overall performance even without those two guys. And they're going to need to have another performance like that again this week. You know, we talk all the time about next man up. Well, Darius Slayton, he stepped up last week. Tyrone Tracy, he stepped up last week. Theo Johnson, he stepped up last week. We're going to need those same guys, some of the other guys as well. Jalen Hyatt, Eric Gray might, get some opportunities as well. Everyone in the offense needs to step up and fill the void that is going to be left by, at the very least, Malik Neighbors. And they showed that they can do it last week. I think they have a great opportunity against this Bengals defense to do it again this week.
Yeah, just don't make the kind of mistakes that are going to force you to bleed out.
Don't beat yourself. Force the Bengals to beat you. Don't beat yourself.
And that's the best advice of all. That'll do it, indeed, for this edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live. We are here every weekday live on Giants.com, Monday to Friday, 12:30 to 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Jot down the number 201-939-4513. For Matt Citak, I'm Paul Dottino. We'll catch you again next time.